You have probably heard her called the First Lady of the World, but Eleanor Roosevelt's path to becoming a global icon was, well, anything but straightforward. Today, we're going to dive into how a woman who genuinely saw herself as an ugly duckling completely transformed into one of the most vital voices for human rights in the entire 20th century.
Yeah, it was President Harry Truman who gave her that title, and it just fit perfectly, didn't it? It completely captured her global impact. But that title, that legacy, it was earned. It was the result of a life packed with personal tragedy and just extraordinary resilience.
So that's the real question, isn't it? How in the world did a shy, insecure girl from this privileged but really painful background become this powerhouse, this global humanitarian icon? Her story is one of the most profound personal transformations you'll ever come across, and we're about to walk through every step of that incredible journey.
To really get the icon, you have to start with the girl, and Eleanor Roosevelt's childhood. It was this strange mix of high society privilege and deep personal pain. That combination would end up shaping her in ways nobody could have ever predicted.
Just look at this contrast. On the left, that's a young Eleanor back in 1887, a little girl who would soon be orphaned. And on the right, that's her nearly 60 years later, a confident, powerful delegate to the United Nations. This journey, from such a tragic start to a career that literally changed the world, it's just a stunning testament to her capacity for change.
She was born into one of America's most famous families, but her childhood was a far cry from a fairy tale. She lost her mother to diphtheria when she was just 8. Then her father, an alcoholic she absolutely adored, died only 2 years later. She was left with her stern, formal grandmother and grew up feeling utterly convinced she was the ugly duckling. I mean, her own mother used to call her Granny because she was so serious. That kind of early pain, it leaves a mark. The first real turning point came when she was 15. She was sent to a boarding school in London called Allenswood, and there, the headmistress, an incredible woman named Marie Souvestre, saw something special in Eleanor. She looked right past the shyness and saw a brilliant, curious mind. Souvestre encouraged independent thinking and social justice, and for the very first time, Eleanor felt like her intelligence was something to be celebrated. This was the start of her awakening.
So in 1905, she married her 5th cousin once removed, the charming and very ambitious Franklin Delano Roosevelt. But if you think marriage brought her freedom, well, think again. She ended up under the thumb of her powerhouse mother-in-law, Sarah Delano Roosevelt, who ran everything: their home, their money, even how they raised their kids. The next stage of her evolution wasn't really a choice. It was forged in the fire of some deep personal crises that would fundamentally change her and her marriage forever.
2 absolutely devastating events changed everything. First, in 1918, she found out Franklin was having an affair with her own social secretary. Then, just 3 years later, in 1921, Franklin was struck down by a paralytic illness. These crises completely shattered her world, but they also, paradoxically, were the very things that pushed her into the public spotlight.
After the affair, the romantic part of their marriage was, well, it was over. They stayed together, but their relationship became something new, a political partnership. With her private life in shambles, Eleanor turned outward, pouring all that energy into social and political work that she truly believed in.
And when Franklin got sick, wow, she really rose to the occasion. She nursed him back to health with incredible devotion. And this is crucial. She fought his mother, who wanted him to retire from public life. It was Eleanor who convinced him to stay in politics. And in doing so, she basically saved the career that would one day make him president.
So when Franklin finally became president in 1933, Eleanor didn't just move into the White House. She moved in with a mission. She was not going to be a traditional First Lady. She was about to redefine the entire role forever.
Now, you'd probably think she'd be thrilled, right? Not at all. She was actually, in her own words, seriously depressed about becoming First Lady. She saw the role as a kind of gilded cage, one that would just limit her to planning parties and being a smiling hostess. But Eleanor refused to be a background player. She decided if the role wasn't going to change for her, she would change the role.
And how did she do it? She became a media pioneer. She used every tool she could find to build her own platform. She held press conferences, but only for female reporters, a brilliant move that forced news outlets to hire more women. She wrote a daily newspaper column called My Day, had her own weekly radio show, and was the very first First Lady to speak at a National Party convention. She was building her own influence, piece by piece.
This caption from a famous New Yorker cartoon just says it all. She was absolutely tireless. People felt like she was everywhere because, well, she was. She traveled all over the country, acting as her husband's eyes and ears, visiting coal mines, talking to out-of-work Americans, and meeting with veterans. She was constantly on the move, listening to people and bringing their stories back to the White House.
And she used this powerful new platform to fight for the causes that mattered to her, especially civil rights. At a time when America was deeply segregated, she was a rare and incredibly vocal advocate inside the White House, pushing for equal rights for African Americans and fighting to make sure New Deal programs helped everyone.
Her friendship with the amazing educator Mary McLeod Bethune was so important. And in 1939, when the Daughters of the American Revolution refused to let the black opera singer Marian Anderson perform in their concert hall, Eleanor didn't just condemn it. She publicly resigned from the organization in protest. Then she helped arrange for Anderson to sing on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial for everyone to see. It was an incredibly powerful statement.
After Franklin died in 1945, most people probably expected Eleanor to finally step back from public life. But they were wrong. Her most important work was actually just getting started. Instead of retiring, she accepted an offer from President Truman to be a delegate to the brand new United Nations. She was officially stepping onto the world stage, not as a president's wife, but completely in her own right, based on her own incredible merit. And at the UN, her sharp intellect and sheer dedication quickly won over even her harshest critics. It wasn't long before she was named the very first chairperson of the UN Commission on Human Rights. This was the role that would define her global legacy.
Her main task? Oh, nothing huge. Just to oversee the drafting of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This was a document that would try to spell out for the first time in history the basic rights that belong to every single person on the planet. It was a massive undertaking, and Eleanor Roosevelt was the driving force behind it all.
After years of tough, grueling negotiations, the UN General Assembly finally adopted the declaration in 1948, and at that moment, the entire assembly got to their feet and gave Eleanor Roosevelt a standing ovation for her tireless leadership. Can you just imagine that moment? And that brings us right back to where we started. It was this achievement, this incredible gift to humanity, that earned her that title from Truman. First Lady of the World was no longer just about who she was married to. It was about her own personal, global legacy. From the ugly duckling to the First Lady of the World, Eleanor Roosevelt's life really is a masterclass in the power of personal evolution. Her journey from private pain to global purpose leaves us with a pretty big question. How can a single person's growth completely change what the world expects is possible?